Hello and
Hey,
welcome, Mantis Meet.
how's it going, everyone?
Hope you guys are having a great evening. We are excited to be here. I would say again, but for us, it's again. For y'all, it's the first time. We're here to actually give you the top 10 Mantis Myths live stream this weekend. So my name is Joshua Byrne. You may have seen me on the group. I'm one of the admins and hopefully not one of the people who annoys you with his too frequent posting. But I have been a Mantis fan since early childhood. A big Chinese mantis was one of my first pets at about 4 years old. And since then, I've almost always had them in my life. I'm really happy to be here with the community and to be able to find so many people worldwide who share the same fascination as me. And you can see some of my mantis family along with various other invertebrates and reptiles as well in the background. And if you pan the camera around, my whole apartment would look like this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lohit. I am also an avid mantis enthusiast. One of my first mantises was a odonto mantis, an ant mantis that I caught in India when I was really young. And since then, I've always been interested in mantises, so much so that I am now researching them. So you could call me a huge mantis nerd, and that would be true. Uh, so I'm really excited to be here with Josh today. We're going to talk about some of the 10 common myths that we've seen in the mantis hobby, stuff that kind of pops up pretty regularly, and we're hoping to clear some of the confusion up for you guys.
Yeah, some of these myths will be biology based, some of them will be about what mantises are like as animals, and then some of them will be keeping myths. There's something that I heard a term in the reptile side of the animal hobby called folklore husbandry, which I think really sums up a lot of the common advice that you will get from both experienced keepers and beginners, just about, oh, I heard someone say this, so you should do it. And sometimes those things are true and sometimes they're not. And so we're going to be looking into why each myth goes around, if we know information on how it started, what it's all about, and then to give you the most correct version of that information that we know ourselves. I mean, Lohit is the person that I go to when I have a mantis question. I mean, like he said, he's doing this for school all the time. And I'm just a nerd on my own time. So we're going to give you, in our opinion, the most important and true versions of these myths. And if you have any questions or any contesting, we would love to see that in the discussion. We're going to be having a question and answer portion to this live stream that'll take place about the last 15 minutes. So get your questions ready and we'll let you know when that's coming on. But I think we should get started with our first myth.
Yeah, sure.
Let me throw up our caption. Fancy.
Oh, yeah, technology. All right, so the first thing we wanted to cover was the myth that high humidity is important for molting. Very often in a lot of mantis care sheets, you'll see like general RH listed for mantis care. And we just wanted to clear up that. So while it is important to make sure your mantis is hydrated, it's not really important what the ambient humidity is. Now, to explain that a little bit more, when a mantis is molting, it'll create a thin liquid layer between its old exoskeleton and new exoskeleton, and this liquid layer is important for separating the two. And when the mantis doesn't have enough hydration, like it hasn't drank enough water, that liquid is not going to be as liquid, or it might not be able to separate the entire body. And that's why you'll see segments get stuck, like the legs or the antenna or something. And so it's really important for all mantis species. Even desert species will still drink. Every now and then, just giving them a little drink of water by spraying them directly. It will not harm the mantis. Just don't use a fire hose. A regular mister bottle will work fine. Just give them a spray directly. They'll drink off their raptors. If you do this every other day, most species are going to be fine with that. There are a few species that might need misting every day, especially when they're really young, because this is where air humidity is a little bit important, because the drier it is outside, the faster your mantis will desiccate. So it'll lose water from its body faster because it's drier in the air. So you can mist the enclosure a little bit more often then to help keep the mantis from drying out faster. It'll also give it a chance to drink more often, and that's how you can help prevent most mist molts.
Right. Definitely not intending to say that humidity is useless,
Yeah.
especially with younger nymphs. They don't have as thick or as watertight an exoskeleton as adults will, and so they can really dry out. Humidity can slow that. But if you're attempting to prevent mismolts just by, oh, look at that beauty,
I got her
just
to
by having a
soften.
very humid enclosure, that's just not going to work.
Yep.
What are you holding? Please introduce us.
So this is Stenophylla lobavertex, the Peruvian dragon mantis, as it's called. This is a subadult female, so really excited to breed these guys soon. I have two pairs currently. And what are you holding, Josh? You also have a very interesting and unique species.
This is Tamilanica tamilana, a garbled name. This is also called the hooded horror or the Papua New Guinean,
Yeah.
Papua New Guinean shield mantis. This is a species that has been kept at various points in history, and now there aren't very many in the US. So we're hoping to see many more of these showing up.
And in your capable hands, I'm sure they will.
Well, that's actually partly going to come down to our next myth that females always eat males during mating. And I hope for this lady's future husband's sake that that's not true. This is one of the most common things people will tell other people about praying mantises. This was observed very quickly when the ancients started noticing insects and writing things down. The Greek biologists and naturalists would talk about that cricket that ate the other one's head. And so it's really commonly observed by both hobbyists and lay people. But it's not true that they always eat the males. In fact, more often than not, the males do survive. And this is pretty important to the males' biology and their habits as well. Male mantises will habitually mate with females that are more full. They'll sometimes spend hours to days observing a female from behind, evaluating her, and deciding whether or not they should go in. And whenever they get the chance to, they'll get out of there with their life before she eats him. In nature, it's been seen for a lot of species to be between 20% and 40% of the time that the male will get killed in either the approaching phase or during mating or afterward. But in human care, if you know what to look for and how to pair them properly, you can often get away with not losing a single male for many dozens of pairings. This is something that does require some vigilance and sometimes staying up late because they will mate for a long time. And when he dismounts, if he's in a small enclosure, he'll often get eaten. But when you keep your mantises and pair them up, you can provide large enclosures, varied spaces and hiding places for that male, because mating him definitely isn't just giving him up and sacrificing him. Most of the time, he will end up surviving.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely to add on to the point, it's about males escaping after they're mating. It's really important to give them a big enclosure while they're mating, or even let them free roam in your room, provided you're able to find mantises pretty well.
That's
I
me.
yeah, I caution when doing so because you might there is a risk you might lose the male.
Yeah.
But
Like
usually
lose him. Like,
yeah,
oh,
lose
where
him
is
like
he?
yeah, like he'll be hidden somewhere, and then you'll find him on a curtain like 3 days later. But usually when I'm mating my mantises, I give them at least a 12 by 12-inch net cube of space to mate, and I'll often try to throw in some like leaves and stuff to help provide the male cover. All this is
Mhm.
kind of important to help minimizing the risk to the male. I mean, if you're approaching a giant predator and you are a smaller predator, you are much more at risk of dying than the other individual is. So yeah, it's important to just keep in mind that the males do want to live, despite what it may seem.
Um,
And they may need some extra space and patience on your part to help them survive.
We're not sponsored by NetCubes, but this is what we
Yeah.
mean when we say 12 by 12 NetCube. This is
Yep.
wonderful. And this is what I often mate my ghosts in, and the males will go down and hide once they're finished.
And as Josh said, definitely once you kind of implement some of these practices and you get some more experience under your belt, yeah, it's definitely very possible that you'll go dozens of matings without seeing any cannibalism of any sort. And usually females that do cannibalize males in the wild tend to be individuals that are in temperate areas. So they have a high pressure to mate before a cold season arrives, and energy sources are kind of limited already. So they're kind of forced to do it out of necessity. But a lot of these tropical species, people will tell you from experience, they do fairly well together for a long while, provided they have enough space and food. So yeah, mantises can be definitely tolerant of other individuals.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. For
Yep.
now, let's continue to hit on the sexual competition, sexual dimorphism aspect with this myth.
Yes. So this is a very common conception that people have that males are always smaller than females. Um, Generally, this is true in many species. However, there are also quite a few species where the males are either bigger or they are heavier, or more robust sometimes than the female. So species like Rhombodera megaera have pretty large males that are pretty comparable in size to the females. They're certainly a little bit slimmer, but sometimes their length can exceed the females from head to wingtip. And they are definitely just as strong. They're pretty able predators in their own right. Things like spiny flower mantises as well. The males are also pretty robust and almost as big as the females are. And some species go the complete opposite way. So things like Epaphroditum musarum, the Caribbean deadleaf mantis, the males are actually bigger than the females, believe it or not. And watching them mate is a hilarious, it's a hilarious thing because the male will have to grip the female's shoulders, as it were, the edge of her pronotum, in order to mount properly. So there's all sorts of weird, wacky phenomenon in mantises in terms of male size and compared to the females.
Yeah, I've had one issue with this set of panther mantises where I had one male who ended up especially huge. And
Oh
it's been a
no.
problem for him because the females are often smaller and he actually can't fit on some of them that I have, where he'll keep curling his abdomen and he just can't reach. And so that's been an issue. He also is really strong and wounded one female pretty bad, where I kept her off the mating rotation for a week or so she could recover. But yeah, some of the ones that, especially the ones with a variable number of molts, where they may normally have the same number, but sometimes they can skip one, the females can end up smaller.
Yeah, definitely. So while it is true that males are definitely lighter on average because they do fly to find females, that doesn't mean they're necessarily smaller. They may be more slim, they may be lighter, but they can be as long and as robust sometimes.
Now, our next myth is another behavioral one, and this is that mantises are all sit and wait predators. I am holding the wrong species for this. This is a Blepharopsis mendica. This is a thistle mantis, and this is a very sit and wait predator. Like a lot of the Ampusidae family, they're going to just hang out in one spot. However, Lohit, who's this
This
friend?
might be a good example. Oh, sorry. This is Theopampa borneana. So this is a bark mantis from Borneo and Southeast Asia. Ooh.
It's shaped like a sleek little race car. I mean, that's a runner.
Yep.
And this myth is especially irksome because it's related to the historical characterization of pretty much all mantises as very samey. This is a group of insects which hasn't received a lot of scientific attention over the years because people tended to have the opinion that they're all pretty similar in their adaptations and their behavior, and that they basically just wait in one spot disguised by their camouflage until something comes close. Now, some species will do that. You'll have your ghost mantises that won't walk 3 inches to go catch a prey item. They'll just wait for it to get closer. But many of them do have an activity rhythm that rewards actively searching for prey. For many mantises, they'll become active roaming around their little section of grassland or forest and looking for food, going toward things that they see, even other mantises approaching large prey items on their own. I've even had mantises try to hunt the snakes that I keep in my apartment. I've had free roaming Chinese and giant shield mantises that if they, go around the ceiling, they'll look for enclosures that have other things in them and try to go get them. And so for some mantises like that, in particular, they will use a lot of enclosure space that you give them. Chinese mantises are a great example of that. Any of the low to the ground, long-legged species like the Theopampa, like Taracodula, those will chase down prey. It makes for great videos and just really fun to watch them as they hunt like little big cats sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. I think the best way to describe mantis hunting behaviors are that they're ambush predators. So, like big cats, they will definitely be walking around, and then they'll notice a prey item, and then they will attempt to stalk it. And sometimes that means that they will follow a prey item to a high traffic site, like flowers.
Mhm.
And in the wild, you may find mantises there just sitting there because they've kind of reached the watering hole for insects, as it were, right? They don't have to go anywhere to hunt. But to get there, they'll often be wandering around searching for prey. And once they find a prey item, then they'll attempt to stalk it. And like Josh said, there's definitely an activity level that rewards them with successful prey capture. So the mantises are definitely overall not sit and wait predators, though some are, like Josh mentioned.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got myth 5. Lohit, explain this one some more for me. I'm really interested to hear what you say here.
Yeah, so for those people who don't know, conspecifics are other individuals who are a member of the same species. So if I had two Theopampa on my hand, for example, I would say I had two conspecifics on my hand. In this case, they would be Theopampa, but they could also be Blepharopsis if Josh had two Blepharopsis.
I won't put the other one
And
out for this.
and the thing people think is mantises really don't choose between eating, a relative of theirs or a prey item, and that is definitely not true. Mantises are definitely capable of recognizing other mantis species, especially conspecifics. Many species have species-specific coloration or patterns that they expose. In an attempt to communicate with other individuals of the same species that they may run into. And some species, like the boxer mantises, even have developed a sort of rudimentary social communication form where they
Mhm.
wave their forelimbs at each other to avoid confrontation. So mantises definitely have some level of relative recognition, and they will try to avoid eating relatives unless they're absolutely starving. Um, Preferring to hunt other types of prey if possible.
Yeah, I would really love to see a more coordinated study about that. What you said, like they will
Mhm.
go after conspecifics if they're starving, but otherwise will reserve. Because I do anecdotally see a lot of adult females of the same species going after each other in the wild.
Hmm.
Sometimes photos of them nearby. Sometimes people post on another bug group like, "Hey, I've got these two mantises next to each other," and then the next day, "Oh, there's one and some parts on the ground." And it's an adult
Right,
female, which clearly has approached and gone after another one. And so I'd be
right.
interested to see like the motivations, whether territory or competition or just hunger, that would do that. But if you
Yeah,
keep a group of nymphs of almost any species together or nearby and look closely, a lot of the time you will see those raising and sort of intimidation displays where they say, "Hey, I'm just as strong as you. It'll be better for both of us if you just keep walking."
yep, yep. And that's a great way to put it. I mean, they will try to get another person off their turf. Another mantis comes up too close to them and invades their personal space. They don't like that, and they'll try to scare them away, or tell them to back off using whatever means that species has. So, like, spiny flower mantises have that big honking eye spot on their abdomen,
So
and they'll
cool.
also flash their raptorials. Boxer mantises will do their arm dance. A lot of even like the Texas unicorns have their own little abdominal colorations that they'll expose sometimes to try and get other individuals to back off. So
Ooh, I haven't
yeah,
seen
it
that.
really depends on the species. Yeah.
Nice. I got to watch for that.
Yeah.
Mine get along so well. They're just buds. They're always
I know.
having
Yeah.
little
Mine,
mates.
I've only seen it once. Most of the time, they're just completely content to hang out with each other.
Nice. This next one, that cross ventilation is required on mantis enclosures, is it's an interesting case. I wanted to include it because some people will emphasize you have to have it all the time. It's not a mantis enclosure unless it's cross ventilated, and this is us just saying that's not true. But it is nice, and there are some reasons why it's nice. It does improve airflow and help to keep the air moving through the enclosure, keep it from getting stale or overly humid. And it also seems to help prevent bacterial and fungal growth in a lot of enclosures, especially if you have a very tall enclosure with just air at the top. That's bad. Air access takes a while to get down to the bottom, and that will end up leading to a lot of the time a dirtier enclosure and a less healthy mantis. But including cross ventilation all the time can also provide a few extra risks or trade-offs that are important to keep in mind, mostly with younger nymphs. One of the things that I see a lot with very small nymphs is that water droplets won't stick around long enough for them to find. They won't really provide very much humidity like we talked about before. If they're in a net enclosure or something with big windows on the sides. And so I actually keep a lot of my nymphs in something like this, which has a net window on the top and otherwise no other ventilation holes. The other benefit for that is that tiny prey items like springtails and fruit flies will have a much harder time getting out. And so if you're feeding 50 little cups like this and having to put in a few prey items in each one, you can't make sure that the mantis gets to all of that prey before it escapes. And keeping the only ventilation up at the top can help to keep that prey inside. Especially if it's something like a flightless fruit fly or a springtail. And so I guess the bottom line for this one is it's not a myth that cross ventilation is important. It's often really helpful, and it keeps your own cleaning down when you don't have to remove the frass and the prey remains at the bottom as much. But it does come with some trade-offs. And if you have enclosures where it's not easy to implement, but the rest of the enclosure's fundamentals are good, you can probably use that enclosure. It's another reason why it's really helpful to check with people on the group and see if someone would recommend for that species or for that enclosure, you should put in some cross ventilation or not.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything you said. I think, yeah, especially just think about when you're misting your enclosure, think about the airflow practically. Like you can always do a test run if you make a new enclosure and you're trying to gauge how much you should be giving your mantis water. You can give it a spray and then watch how long it takes for the water to dissipate. And then based on that, you can kind of adjust your misting schedule. It's also important to keep in mind that the drier the place that you live is, the more at risk cross ventilation will cause desiccation in your nymphs, just because you're letting in more dry air at a time, right? Versus somewhere that's more humid. So just a couple things to keep in mind. As Josh said, it's definitely useful to have sometimes. And if you're living in a place that's very humid, you may want to consider cross ventilation because the air is not going to move as much if it's similar outside and inside the enclosure. So definitely take into account your environment, but also the risks and benefits that Josh mentioned.
All right, next, let's talk a bit more about enclosures. Any container can be a mantis enclosure.
Yep.
True?
No, definitely not. So, yeah, a lot of the things that I see with new keepers is they'll get a mantis and they're super excited about it. And they kind of just toss together an enclosure out of a spare container that they may have in their house. Often, unfortunately, this ends up sometimes being an all glass enclosure that the mantis isn't able to climb well, and they think that just by throwing in a few sticks, the mantis will be just fine. Or sometimes I see they're like these old plastic jars, which can work, sometimes, but the caveat is sometimes they need modification. So a lot of these insect enclosures that people try to create for these mantises, if they aren't purposed for that initially, keep in mind that you might have to do some pretty significant modification in order to make it suitable for the mantis. So not all species can climb glass, and not all species can climb glass or plastic their entire lives. Some get too heavy to do so, even if they can do so when they're younger. And because of this, you might need to add mesh to the sides, definitely to the top. You may need to adjust the way the bottom of the enclosure is as well, because a solid plastic or a solid glass enclosure is a mismolt risk, because if the mantis falls, it's a hard surface that they're landing on. It makes it more difficult to salvage a bad mold. And it also just generally holds in moisture not as well. So just, you may need to do more modification if you're using something that isn't made to house an animal. So that's something you definitely need to keep in mind. You need to have, the mantis needs to be able to climb on all sides of the enclosure, if not at least 80% of the enclosure. And if you don't have the tools to do that, then you need to find something that's more suitable for the mantis in that case.
Good summary. Sounds good to me. I don't have much to add there, but I do want to let you all know we're going to have our question and answer time soon. So start thinking about questions, start entering them in the chat, and we will get to those after we finish out the top 10 myths. We also recognize that we haven't covered everything in here at all. There are plenty of other random bits of information or misinformation that come up about mantises. And so if you have any others that you would like to see us answer, or even as a full topic for another live stream, definitely post that in the comments for us to consider in the future. All right, next. This one comes up a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Feed a sick or injured mantis honey. This is a complicated one, and it does have its roots in truth. For one, pretty much every omnivorous animal loves sugar. Most insects will gravitate toward sugar. Most insects will feed on sweet stuff if they get it up to their mouths. And, it looks really sweet to see your mantis enjoying some honey as a treat. Oh, what a beauty. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I love her. Or him, can't tell.
This is the girl, yeah.
But yeah, it's really cute to see him having honey. And then there's also that side of things where honey can have some antibiotic properties. And I say can here because not all of it does. Some processed honey and some honey made from certain sources doesn't have as much antibiotic and antifungal properties as the purest and best quality honey. But the reasons that this is more a myth come down to a few things. Number one, at least for people, honey is pretty much a topical antibiotic. If the mantis consumes it, it's going to be contacting the insides of its digestive lining. And a lot of the time, if you can see an infection, a dark discoloration, or necrotic portion of your mantis, the honey that it eats just won't do anything to that. If you can see dark discoloration, a lot of the time, it's too late, unfortunately. There are some sort of early symptoms, such as vomiting, which people will recommend honey for. But in my experience, that's just as well treated by giving them water, giving them some time, and then feeding them on very clean prey as well. It's sort of just being asked to do too much for honey to save the life of a mantis. People will also recommend doing it after a mantis has mismolted. And when they're first still soft, when they're struggling to get out of their skin, feeding them is the last thing that you should be doing. It's most important to get them hanging on their own, leave them alone for a bit, and allow them to fully harden, and then start feeding them stuff with real nutrients, like insect guts. They will start to eat that really quickly, just like they will with honey, except this will also give them nutrients to rebuild their body rather than just some sugar to tide them over. Now, it does have a couple uses in my experience. The first and foremost is distraction. I love feeding females honey while the male creeps up behind them just to get them looking away from him for a second. And it's really easy to present on a thin stick. And so if a prey item won't do, if she just needs to look the other way for a second more for him to mount, I'll give her a little bit of that. Or some pollen paste too is really great for that. And also for assist feeding, if you have a mantis which is really reluctant to eat for one reason or another, if it doesn't like how hard the prey item's shell is, or the taste of it compared to something else, sometimes it will start eating. If you put a little honey on that prey, it'll start chewing, and sooner or later it finishes the whole thing. I've had that happen before as well, where it's a little handy. But as far as the medical uses of honey, really the only advice that I can give is preventing those issues in the first place. Keeping the mantis in an enclosure that'll allow it to molt properly, keeping it from being injured mechanically, and feeding it the best quality stuff rather than things like black soldier flies or just from the pet store crickets, which can be known for causing indigestion or infections. Preventing those issues is going to be a lot more successful than trying to treat them with honey.
Yeah, and as Josh mentioned, it can be used as a topical ointment if you absolutely need to. You just put some on the injury site if like they got punctured during mating or something. The nice thing about honey is it is antibacterial, like Josh said. So while it won't help them if they eat it, it can be used to cover a wound so that it can heal in an antibacterial space. And it'll help cut down on infection as a result of that. So that is a great use of honey. And yeah, like Josh said, it's a great way to distract a female that wants to attack the male if he's trying to mount. The other benefit is because it's sticky, it can take them a while to clean off, which also distracts them. So yeah, it's definitely got some uses, but it's not a cure-all solution like some people act like it is.
Oh, 2 more notes to this one. It's also really good if you want them to sit still for photos or for sexing.
Oh, yeah.
I love both those purposes. Just get them distracted, let them eat, and get that microscope up there to look at their butt. And also that I haven't heard of anyone doing this with mantises, but in case someone ever gets the idea, don't give them human antibiotics. If you put Neosporin on them, they will die. Their bodies don't work that way. And so just as a clarification there, it doesn't work for arthropods, unfortunately. So that may be one reason why people would want to turn to other options. All right, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
Sweet, sweet.
So this is another thing that I see a lot of people talk about. That mantises climb on you because they love you. As you can see, this is a female that's very actively trying to climb towards my face. And she has not stopped doing so since I brought her over here. Does that mean she loves me? No. That's not to say mantises can't get habituated to being handled and even learn a little bit to recognize someone, though the evidence for that is kind of wishy-washy. It does need like a bit more of a study, but mantises can definitely become accustomed to being handled and desensitized to humans moving them around. You'll definitely notice the more you handle a mantis, the calmer it will become over time. But again, that does not mean they love you. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but these are solitary predators that do not form social bonds and are incapable of forming that sort of attachment to individuals of their own species, let alone other species. And despite what people may think that they are domesticated, oh my gosh, she is chunky.
Yeah.
Despite what people may think that they are domesticated, they are not domesticated. There hasn't been a species of mantis that people have cultured for even dozens of generations, unlike dogs and cats, which are domesticated animals. And so these are still very much pretty wild animals who operate on their instincts. So it's important to keep that in mind, because I think once people start assuming that the mantis is doing things as a result of an emotion they don't have and anthropomorphizing them, you might miss certain cues that the mantis is displaying that may tell you something about its health or something about what it needs at the time. And it can unfortunately sometimes cause a mantis to remain sick or unhealthy a lot longer than if you were to diagnose it immediately. Another thing that I also see is when the mantis sometimes will put its head down and start nibbling on your fingers. That doesn't mean that it's trying to kiss you. It's actually trying to lap up the moisture and salts on your body because it's very dehydrated. So when you see a mantis doing that, you should immediately go get your water bottle and give it a spray so that it can drink.
Definitely. This, like Lohit said, this is mostly important just for being able to recognize what that animal needs at that time. I give insects a lot of credit as far as their cognitive abilities, but I still always want to keep in mind that this animal that may have had a great interaction with me yesterday is still basically wild. And if I approach it in the wrong way, it will strike at me, it will bite me, it will run away. And so always being sure to treat them on their level, how they need to be treated as a solitary predator. And then it's also really good to know that they like to go up. Pretty much every mantis loves going up. If you hold out your hand to it like this, it's going to go up here, and then it's going to look at your face and be like, can I jump there? Because that's higher than where I am now. And so for a lot of the time, if you're having trouble getting your mantis back into the enclosure, just give it something that's higher up. Oh, you want a drink right now? Look at you nibbling my finger. Aw, you're showing off. Yeah, give it something higher and it'll go on. With a lot of my big adult females that I've worked with that are chill, when I go and do educational presentations, I'll let kids have the chance to hold one, and all they need to do is put their hand like this and it'll go right up there. It makes a great photo. So they love to go up, and that's a lot of the time what they're doing. Like, yeah, up on the ear. The coolest earring in the world.
I think that's another good point that you brought up is I see a lot of people say that they're trying to put their mantis away and their mantis just wants to hang out with them instead because they keep going up their arm. And again, it's because they want to climb up, right? You can see this female is very quickly climbing up, and as soon as I present something higher that she can grip onto, she is back on my hand. Exactly. So they do want to try and climb up, and definitely sticking them back into something that's smaller than the area they were also might make them feel a little trapped. So one easy way to get them back in the enclosure that I found is just present them with the bottom of the lid, and put it above them, and they'll climb right up just like she's doing now. So
very good.
Right back up, and then you can just put them back in the enclosure. Of course, just be careful that you're not smushing any legs because they will move. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have, okay. I feel like we've been pretty scientific this whole time, but now it's time to get a little pedantic. Mantises and mantids actually aren't synonyms. If you're trying to be technical, these do in fact mean different things. And this comes down to the same sort of topic as them all being sit and wait predators, which is that they are very varied, and that the different families of mantises can be significant as far as their biology and what it's like to keep them. And so technically, I am holding a mantis who is not a mantid. She is an eremiaphilid. She's in the family Eremiaphilidae and not the family Mantidae. Now, Mantidae is one of the largest families. It's one of the ones that contains a lot of the very typical looking mantises. But if you say mantids in a scientific context, you're referring just to those ones, and you're leaving out the flower mantises in Hymenopodidae, the cat-eye mantises in Toxoderidae. You're leaving out a lot of others. And so it's really not critical. I won't correct you on the page, but it's a fun fact that the whole ID ending best refers to the family, and that mantises is the most correct way to refer to the entire group of insects.
Yeah, as Josh said, if you say mantids, people will generally understand that you're meaning mantises. But if you're talking about them in a scientific sense, then as Josh said, it only includes one group. And so you need to, I think it's definitely good to understand that because as Josh said, there's definitely family specific care requirements generally that you'll see because a lot of them are distributed in similar habitats or have some fundamental aspect about their biology that's similar. And oftentimes, when you're keeping another member from that family, if there hasn't been much info provided about how to care for them, or you can't find anything, and a good baseline is just looking at another member in that family and comparing the care requirements for that species to the one that you have. So there's like a bunch of uses for knowing this sort of information. And while it's not necessary to keep them, it can be very helpful sometimes, especially because a lot of these things that we're finding out about the species that we keep are just by having them and learning about them. And speaking personally, whenever I keep a new species, I kind of look at, okay, what's the most related species to this one that I've kept before? There's probably going to be some overlap. And I kind of use that as a baseline to start keeping it. And then from there, I can adjust various things about how I'm keeping it to better fit the species if I feel like I need to change anything. So definitely some useful information to learn if you have the time.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't listened to our taxonomy live stream from
Yes.
a few months
Yeah.
ago, dig that one up, because that one, a lot of what we just said will also be said in there, along with more cool information. It was just reminding me of that. But it's time for Q&A. I've been peeking at the chat
Oh, yeah.
so far, and it's been a lot of fun. But if you have questions, type them in there. We're going to do our best to answer these chronologically for about the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll see you on the page. Lohit, you need to smile more. That's the first thing I'm seeing.
I don't know. I'm just smiling a decent bit.
How can you not smile looking at all these mantises?
I remember reading that. The time that person commented that, we were talking about like this whole thing. I'm not going to smile then.
It would be insensitive. Is no one going to talk about how cool that Stenophila is? Stenophila, Stenophila. What do you say, by the way?
I say Stenophila.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I would say like Phila because of the two L's, but I don't know.
Like Philocrania. I don't know.
I don't know. It's super cool. I want one. A lot.
I will try my best.
Yeah. Anyway, counting on you a lot. Any links or recommendations for cheap mesh tents like the ones behind Josh? What I can tell you, as far as where you want to get them from, that's kind of up to you because they do get sold in a variety of different quantities and from different companies that you may want to support or want to not support. But the brand name is Rest Cloud, and they come in various sizes, various shapes. These cylindrical ones, like you can see up here, are also really good. Those come in a few different sizes too. If you have a species like an Impucid, like an Mantis that wants to be in a mesh thing for its whole life, Rest Cloud small cylinders are really good with those too. So that's the brand. Lohit, do you have anything additionally to add for that?
Yeah, pretty much. You'll a lot of different like online sellers that do like animal stuff, insect related stuff specifically will have them.
Yeah.
I found this site called store.raisingbutterflies.org.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty good. So they have like little bit cheaper prices compared to what you'll find that I've seen anyway. I mean, I'm sure there's other sites out there that probably have something else, but
yeah,
they're pretty good. So
if it's the site that you go to for invertebrate information, that might have some as well.
Yeah.
Are banded crickets better for mantises, presumably better than house crickets, if you can find them? I've heard they're good for reptiles because they're cleaner than the typical pet store crickets. So I have a bit of an answer for this one. Banded crickets, as far as I have heard, are pretty much better in every way. They tend to be quieter, and they also don't get the cricket paralysis virus that the house crickets are prone to, which can kill them off pretty fast and then breed the nasty bacteria conditions that can be so bad about house crickets sometimes. Other than that, I think they're pretty similar as far as like nutritional quantity. And so if you have like crickets that you want to raise at home, banded crickets will a lot of the time be better. Are they restricted in some areas though? Do you know?
I'm not sure actually. I assume everything is probably restricted in Florida. So
okay,
I would look
fair,
that up specifically for Florida, but I think generally they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are a bit smaller, and I feel like they're jumpier and skitterier. So I guess those are negatives, but I like them a lot. I've seen some wild before and neglected the chance to catch them and breed them. But next time I see them, I'm grabbing those.
Yeah, I think Ace Hardware usually has the banded crickets, and there was an Ace like back in my old place, and I would always go there and get a bunch of banded crickets. Like I'd get like a couple dozen every couple weeks and just use them to
Nice.
supplement my red runners and blue bottle flies. So yeah, definitely a great feeder. I never had any issues with the Ace specific ones. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This isn't a question, but I just want my panther to see that someone called her huge, and I want her to appreciate that because she's a good girl. Thank you.
Very chill.
She's going to be laying soon. She mated last week, and I've been
Yeah,
feeding her a
some
lot.
of her eggs maybe are with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got so many baby panthers. Doing great. What do you guys think about people feeding their mantis with fruit?
Yes. So I'm of the opinion that fruit is kind of food for their food. I think it's just not really necessary. There's no real evidence that they would eat fruit anyway in the wild, and if they do, they're eating it mostly for the moisture content rather than the actual fruit itself. So your mantis is probably somewhat thirsty anyway. I mean, you can like a little bit, probably isn't going to hurt them, though. I wouldn't go ahead and experiment because you never know. Sometimes fruit's a lot more acidic than prey that they're eating, so it
True.
might cause digestive issues. That's something to think about. I just don't really see it's necessary. It's like feeding, like, I don't know, cats fruit. I mean, like you can, but you might get some digestive issues as a result. So better
Yeah.
to just avoid it and feed it to their food.
Something else that can be relevant with feeding actual fruit-eating animals with fruit is that the fruits that we take from the grocery store are really different than the fruit that they would be finding in the wild because it's been bred by people. And so the concentrations of sugars and certain acids and stuff, they're going to be a lot higher. And yeah, that might not sit well with every animal, even those that are made to eat fruit. If they do get it, it'll probably be from, if they get anything beneficial, it'd be from moisture.
That's a big boy or a girl.
This is a girl. This is a subadult
she's
macromantis.
Jeez.
She is my baby. And her sister who needs to molt, so she's not coming out until she does. Yeah. Can we write down that family's scientific name? Presumably Eremiaphilidae. I will put that along with actually the information for all the mantises who came out during this video.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the comments at the end.
Yeah.
I picked up mantids because I like the way it sounds. Oh, it sounds way better. It sounds so much better than saying mantises every time. Someone asked who we are, and then someone answered that in a little bit. But we're a couple of admins of the group. Joshua Byrne here.
Lohit, Garikipati.
Lohit mentioned how some species have some type of communication with their species. Ooh, spicy question. Can different species communicate with each other?
Ooh, that's interesting. From what I've seen, only so far as they will try to do whatever their normal communication is, and whether it goes through to the other species, like it gets recognized, is kind of up in the air. Like some species might really not care that a boxer mantis is boxing, or they might not interpret it the same way that the boxer mantis is trying to get it interpreted as, which is we're friends, don't eat me. So I think there's not much research done on it though, so it'd be interesting to see. There's a lot of especially in places like the U.S., which has a lot of introduced species. It'd be interesting to see how native species and introduced species end up interacting.
That would.
Yeah, it's not really well researched. That's a good question.
My sort of guess for this is that the mantis's behavior will only affect the other mantis if it does something about its appearance that would broadly change its category from prey to predator or prey to get away. I mean, I think with the same species, because they will usually eat smaller conspecifics. If a nymph that's 2 instars below a bigger one does the little threat display, the bigger one won't care and will eat it anyway a lot of the time. And I've seen, just from housing different species next to each other and from keeping the free roamers, that a lot of the time they'll threaten a free roamer or a neighbor who comes nearby, and they usually don't seem to care, especially because they tend to be larger. But especially for like, if the courtship display of a male would impress a female of a different genus, or of the same genus even, would be really interesting if she would allow that for species that do have courtship displays. I don't know if a pseudacanthops could court an acanthops, for instance.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, and
that's
the
something we
males
would need to
look
investigate.
somewhat similar, so
Yeah.
like visually. So yeah, it'd be pretty interesting.
Should Ben be allowed to continue encouraging the renaming of Parasphendale from Budwing to Tiger? Personally, I think Tiger Mantis is a better name in pretty much every way, but the history of Budwing is going to be pretty hard to unseat. I would like to see him continuing to encourage it, just to see what happens. Like, if it does actually get taken over by the community, I think that'd be interesting sociologically. But it's Budwing everywhere, and it would be kind of confusing for a while as well. But Tiger's a better name. They look like tigers. They're cool.
I think so too. I think also because there's a lot of budwing mantises like everywhere. Like,
you see that panther's wings?
Yeah, panther's wings, stagmomantis in the U.S. Like, there's budwings found in most continents. Pseudomantis in Australia. Like, it's a pretty common phenomenon. So it's not that descriptive.
Ooh, can we make a list of the sites that we've referenced afterward? Yeah, I can put those, as well as I can put a couple of papers that I pulled up here in case we needed them. One on male mate preference and choice, and one on eating conspecifics. And I can put those up in case you guys want to read some stuff afterward. But yeah, we can make some notes of some of the specific stuff we've referenced.
Yeah, for sure.
Skitterier. I say, if you can find, let's see. Fruit would be for the benefit, yeah. Oh, is there any evidence of how shields have evolved to adapt to environment in genera such as Rhombodera? Shields are a funny one because they are everywhere. It's called like a lamellar expansion, like a plate-like expansion. And you can even see that there is some lamellar expansion on those dark parts at the top of this macromantis. She has sort of a square shield near her head that blends in with the raptors when they hold them out to the sides. And this is a character that had been used before to try to find relatedness, but it's appeared so many times. Sometimes, like the Tamilanica that I had out at the start, her shield is probably pretty similar in development to Rhombodera because they are very closely related taxonomically. But her shield from a violin mantis's shield, or a Coratodus, anything with the gigantic shields, those would have come from a different root, and it ended up being advantageous. But as far as like how they evolved, this would come down probably to natural selection, where an individual is born that has a strangely wide pronotum, or a whole hatch probably because of genetics. And that pronotum provides better armor or a more leaf-like appearance. And so it's selected for over and over to have big and bigger shields. And it does really provide some good armor. I've seen a lot on males with shields that if they get caught by the female, that shield will give them some leeway to wiggle and a way to escape. And I can assume that that works similarly with predators that try to attack them from behind. It's confusing where the mantis's organs are. It's confusing what's vital. It makes it look like a leaf. So it's a really handy thing. That's why it's everywhere in mantises.
Yeah, and I think the individual the macromantis, is interesting, right? Because they have that small shield, but what are they doing with their raptors there?
Yeah.
So you guys see how they're holding them apart? So that's kind of a unique characteristic about this group, the Phodiniidae, is they kind of sit with their arms spread apart to try and recreate that lamellar expansion, but with their raptors instead of having an expanded shield on their thorax, on their prothorax. So it's a really interesting case of like a convergent or like similar cryptic strategy, but the two mantises are doing it different ways. So, and like Josh said, shields are found a lot in the mantis order. You'll see like in pretty much every continent in every continent actually there are there's a species that has this expanded lamellar region.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you have Coerodotus in South America. You have Rhombodurella, which is closely related to Sphaudra mantis in Africa. You have Rhombodera in East Asia and Southeast Asia. You have Deroplates, which are deadleaf mimics, but they also have that expanded pronotum. And you have Tamalenica, which is in New Guinea, right? They're New
Yeah,
Guinean.
they
Yeah,
also hit
so
Australia, I think, too.
yeah, and Northern Australia, I guess. So yeah, you have and Orthodera in Australia. So
Right.
you have all these cases of this expanded pronotum being useful in some way. And like Josh said, it definitely affords the males a lot of protection um, if the female does try to attack them. And I can definitely see how if a bird or something was trying to grab them, it might be harder to grab a round thing versus a thin thing. If you think
Yeah.
about the shape of their pronotum, right? So definitely can be useful. Yeah.
Oh, we've got some wonderful questions, but we are coming low on time. So I think
Yeah.
we'll answer a couple more of these, and then we'll
Sure.
have to bid you guys farewell for the night.
Yeah. Well, until next time.
Lohit, take this one. What's the variation in mantises' behavior right after they hatch? Do some nymphs hang out with each other at all when they're really young?
Right. So yeah. So recently, earlier this year, I worked on this project with my partner on mantis dispersal. That was one of the aspects of the project, and we found uh, definitely different individuals took off in their own like direction. Some would stay very close to the hatch site, like in the first 24 hours. Some would disperse quite far, even up to like a foot or two away. Granted, the space that we had them dispersing wasn't huge, but they could definitely travel even further if they wanted to. So there's definitely pretty big variation. And there's also species level differences. So some species like acanthops or Matilia, you'll have all the individuals kind of hang out on the ooth right next to each other for some reason for about a day, and then on their own they'll all disperse and go their own separate ways. Same thing with Branxicia or Deropatis truncata. They'll kind of hatch and they'll all hang around with their mom and the next to the
Right.
ooth. And that's a case of maternal care, which is really unique. And they'll just kind of all hang out there for about a day before they'll all go kind of their own separate ways. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Outside of the maternal care, I don't know if there's any reason why they would stay together
yeah.
besides maybe just hardening up their exos together in one spot rather than roaming. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's a social reason beyond parental care.
Yeah.
Um,
I can maybe see like if it's beneficial the early stages to like stay together. So if a predator does attack, it's a herd mentality kind of thing. You have the opportunity
hmm,
to escape because a sibling gets eaten instead. So I can see that aspect why they might stay together
for
early on.
two.
But yeah.
Um, what species would be good for free roamers? In my experience, big, sturdy, and not too picky.
Yeah.
I usually use adult females of any species like larger than 2.5 to 3 inches as a free roamer, and I'll usually have at least one free roamer when I have multiple rooms, sometimes two, but I like to keep it one per room going on at a time. This is my current one. This is a Rhombodera megera, and she lives normally on a plant on my kitchen table. But she leaves and she'll go across the ceiling. She'll go torment the nymphs nearby. I have found her just climbing up the couch while I'm sitting there, like, oh, hi. So if you have a free roamer, you can't have other pets that'll mess with it. And you
Yeah.
also just have to be careful about doors and windows, places for it to stay. you really want to make sure that they don't get themselves hurt by traveling around an environment that wasn't really made for them. But it can also work great. I mean, mine usually are on places where they lay ooths, which are live plants, and they like to lay on those. They also tend to have really healthy feet because it's a natural surface that's easy for them to climb around on. And they can get extremely habituated because they see you going back and forth all the time, so they can become really tame. And that's what I like to use for the mantises that I use for education, is just free roam them so they're used to seeing people walk a lot. But yeah, as far as what species, also don't use anybody who likes to hide in tight spaces. I tried this with a Brunner's mantis, and she got into the space between the couch cushions, and I had to flip it over to get her out because they like to be in like tight grasses and stuff. So yeah, any big classic looking mantis is usually the free roamer. Next one, how genetically similar are hatchlings from the same ooth? Do different species, let's have this be the second to last one because there's one more that I want to hit.
Yeah.
Do different
Sure.
species tolerate inbreeding more than others?
Yeah, so in my experience, yes. Definitely certain species are more tolerant of inbreeding than others. Some can be bred almost forever. It seems like 8+ generations just off the same line. Like Garikipati, they're pretty robust. But some groups have some have decreased hatch rates, for example, over time, or behavioral issues like females might not be interested in laying. You might mate the females with the males and get non-sterile or get sterile eggs. So there's a number of things that could happen as a result of inbreeding. So I think just in general, it's good practice every 3 or 4 generations to try and source a male or female from a different bloodline. Even at the very least, it can't hurt. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the reason that we're being vague about this is, do different species tolerate inbreeding more than others? We haven't noticed a specific like taxonomic connection. It's hard to say sometimes, like you can't just say, oh, this family doesn't deal with it very well. Because although that's true for some members, it may not be true for others. And so that's kind of a difficult one to pin down. There's also just very small sample sizes of a couple people working with a couple generations, and other things may go wrong that would confound that. But I will also note, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll also note that females that mate with multiple males can mix when they use the sperm, and so you may have a hatch that has 3 different fathers if she mated 3 times and used sperm from all of them. Or she may mate twice and then decide that she didn't like the first guy's sperm and only use the second one. And so it's actually difficult to know who fathered what if they've been mated multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. I've seen a few people in different mantis groups ask if they should euthanize after a mismoult. What's your opinion on that, and when should you euthanize?
Yeah, I think, well, it depends on how severe the mismoult is. I'll say a couple things.
Yeah.
If the mantis is unable to hang just properly, there's almost no chance it will be able to molt properly. In that situation, I would suggest euthanizing it. If the mantis has old exoskeleton still stuck on it, especially on its face, it might not be able to even eat. In that case, you should euthanize it. Honestly, even if the raptors are gone, as long as the mantis can hang and you're willing to hand feed it, the mantis will be okay. And you can keep it alive. But if it's unable to hang, it has its mouth is not able to work properly, or it's just so mismolted that it seems like it can't function properly with like hanging or eating or even just walking. I would consider euthanization. Also, you have to keep in mind that they don't have a lot of emotions that we have, but they still do feel senses of panic and struggle and confusion.
Right.
And so you should keep that in mind when you're considering whether you want to keep your mantis alive or not. And if you feel that its quality of life is just so poor that it's almost non-functional, then I would suggest considering euthanization. And I recommend freezing. They're cold-blooded, so after a while in the fridge, they kind of just pass out basically, and then they die. So pretty painless. Yeah.
I brought out my current special needs mantis. This Tamallanica female, she got that back leg stuck in her exoskeleton when she molted, and so it ended up curved like this. And as you saw when I sat down with her, she does sometimes have trouble holding on to things, especially when she's trying to grip with that leg and trying to contort her body to reach and can't reach. And so she's in an enclosure with more plants on the sides that she can grip on, easier for her to climb up to the top. But otherwise, she's going to live a perfectly normal life. And even mantises which have both back legs bent in this way can often end up surviving and molting with a little bit of special care. And so, yeah, this is different for each one. I tend to freeze as well. It tends to work pretty quickly. A swift crushing can also be the fastest method, but not everybody wants to do that. So, yeah. Anyway, you guys have asked some incredible questions and made this even better of a live stream than it was going to be before. We really appreciate you coming here and exploring these myths and legends and all sorts of fun stuff with us. So thank you so much for your interest. Lohit, anything else to say before we go?
I guess just, like Josh said, thank you to everyone for all the awesome questions and participating. I hope this was really informative. Like we said, there's definitely a lot more myths out there, and we may just well have to do a part 2 to get to the rest. So hopefully that'll come down the pipeline. And if you guys have any more questions, you can always ask them in the comments of the stream after it's posted, and we will answer them when we can. So,
all right. Thank you, community. See you guys around, and have a great night.